going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of JaAR. JaAR, for those of you that may be new, stands for Joe
and Amy
Review, and this is our show where we review the Magic stories. And this time we are back with more Dominaria United stories. We are in the clump right now where we're going to be reviewing a bunch of side stories one after another. We're reviewing them in the order they came out. Don't complain to us. And we are here with side story 4 of 5. They're not technically numbered, but we know how many there are. With Shards of Nightmare by Phoebe Barton. My quick review on this one is that this story, to my knowledge, has no impact on the Dominaria United story overall, but has to have impacts on the future stories of Dominaria going forward. Just has to. So for that reason, it's important. I thought it was entertaining enough. So for those reasons, I think you should read it. And that's what I've got.
Okay. I think you should read it too. It was good. But I kind of don't have more to say in my quick review about it.
That's fair. So if those quick reviews made you interested in going to check it out, if you have not done so already, or if it's gotten to the point where you need to remind yourself what this story is about, the top link in the description down below will take you to this story so that you can read it for yourself if you're interested, or again, remind yourself, whatever the case may be. And then either way, no matter whether you choose to go or not, we would love it if you would then be here with us to give us your opinions afterwards as well, when we get to the full review itself, which will be in just a moment. But first, hi, welcome to the channel. Thank you so much for being here. We have been making these videos for all of Dominaria United stories. We've got 2 more to go. Side story 5 and then main story 5. So stay tuned for those. We've got like maybe 2 others after that we want to be doing. So if this is something that interests you, make sure that you stick around. You can subscribe and ring that bell so that you get notifications whenever any of our videos come out, including more JaARs in the future. And if you're on this channel, we go live every Monday and Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time right here on this channel. If you missed it this past Friday, we finished our first ever Nuzlocke live on the channel. It was a trip. Win or lose, you should definitely check it out. The VOD for that is not here. It's on Video Games for All. So if you look down in the description box below, underneath the link to this story that we mentioned earlier, we have the links for Video Games for All and Gluten Free for All, our other 2 channels. Video Games for All, you can check out the VOD of our stream, as well as 3 new videos a week. We just started this past Wednesday over on Video Games for All. Amy, playing through for the first time ever and seeing for the first time ever Banjo-Kazooie for the Nintendo 64. And that's after finishing off Amy playing through or seeing the entirety of Final Fantasy VII. So if you missed any of that stuff, you should definitely go over and check that out. By the way, that's Final Fantasy VII original, not the remake.
Yes, and Banjo-Kazooie was actually on the Nintendo 64.
Yeah, oh, I'm sure we'll get to the glitches eventually. It happens. It's an older system. Welcome to it. But yes, you should definitely check that out. Again, over on Video Games for All, links in the description down below, along with Pokemon every Tuesday and Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney every Sunday. And then once a month, Amy is doing awesome stuff over on Gluten Free for All as well. Gluten-free food reviews, like snacks and things like that, or gluten-free cooking and tips and stuff like that. So I encourage you to check it out. Like I said, some amazing stuff over there.
Thanks.
But you're welcome. Thank you. And actually, this Friday, we announced it on stream, so I'll say it now. This Friday, since we finished our Nuzlocke, we are going to be starting our Spooky Month early, our Spooky Month live streams. So this Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern, right here on this channel, we are going to be starting Eternal Darkness Sanity's Requiem. It is one of my favorite games of all time. If you are unfamiliar, if you are familiar, you should be here for it. It is for the GameCube, or from the GameCube era. So we hope you come join us and enjoy. Should be very, very interesting. Amy knows nothing about it.
Literal nothing.
Literal nothing. There are
Except that it's Halloween and it's early Halloween.
Yes.
I love Halloween.
Mainly because it's going to take us that long to beat the game, but we're going to do our best. So we would love it if you would join us for that. And then if you're a fan of Magic the Gathering, last thing is our Monday streams, as I mentioned, are at 8 p.m. Eastern. And there we play MTG Arena. We've been playing through Dominaria United, limited. That is basically what we do, is almost 90+% limited on our channel, on our streams. So, but we would still love to have you for any and all things that you want to come join us for. If you're watching a pre-recorded video like this one, we would love to hear from you in the comments down below, especially in JaAR. We want to hear your opinions, your thoughts, etc. Agree with us, disagree with us, something that we didn't talk about, let us know down below. We would love to hear from you. So, on to the full review itself. We're back with the Weatherlight crew. We have Shanna, Tiana, Slimefoot, Raph, Arvad. So all the people that we have seen from the last Dominaria set. From 2018, I think they were saying it was from. Which feels like it was very recent, but also not. But still. And then we see, as the story goes on, they're on the Weatherlight, of course, and we see Braids coming into play. Now, Braids was in this set, and I thought that was kind of interesting. I mean, Braids, a fan favorite and or infamous character because of her card's prevalence in Commander, EDH. And so they were able to bring her back as a character. Braids, a Risen Nightmare. We've gotten to see her being used on stream as well as in paper during pre-release and stuff. Very interesting. Her card and her abilities, etc. But yeah, so this is where we are at this point. I don't fully understand why the Weatherlight is carrying around a bunch of Phyrexian crap. Like, I wrote
like
that
they
it's...
repaired it with it.
I didn't think that was what it was. Because Braids said, why do you have that stuff? Is it just to get it from point A to point B? Like, how does that help you? So, I mean, I assumed it was at the behest of Karn and company, right? Because Karn asked the Weatherlight, Shanna and the Weatherlight, to come and pick them up from the tower that they were locked in, right? Because they listened to Sten, which was the dumbest decision they could have ever possibly made. We've talked about that already. We'll move on. Go check out our other reviews from Dominaria United. The Planeswalkers became idiots for this story for some reason. But now, apparently, because we don't even see any of the Planeswalkers in this story, so they were on the Weatherlight, now they're not anymore. Maybe in the fifth and final story we'll hear where they went. But, I mean, I guess spoilers, because we just told you to go read the story, or if you're not interested in you don't care about spoilers. But spoilers, by the end of the story, no one's on the Weatherlight, so, I mean, there's that.
But it is full of meat.
Which you said many times in that artwork.
I sure did.
For Weatherlight Completed. When it was zoomed in on Arena, I guess. You were saying, you were like, why is it full of meat? It just looks like it's full of raw meat or sausage, hot dog meat or whatever.
Like ground things, nothings.
And sure enough, in the story, it mentioned that the engine room was full of meat. It was something like that. Something like that.
They watched our video.
I guess so. That's definitely what it was. Because after they'd drawn the picture...
Right.
And definitely written the story,
right,
is when they then watched our video and then made it say meat.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. I just thought it was dumb. I'm like, I don't understand why you're carrying all this Phyrexian stuff on your ship. Just doesn't make sense to me. Like,
yeah, I
to keep it away from the people, but like you're pretty important people, so
I gathered that the ship had gotten damaged. And they used the Phyrexian technology to repair the ship enough to get it flying.
I think you're blending that with what Tiana was trying to do. Because there was the Phyrexian war machine that was inside of the like gibbering wall area.
Yeah.
That when she got in there, she gathered a bunch of stuff, flew it back to the ship to try to repair the cracked like crystals or whatever the hell it was. That would have helped the Weatherlight stay in the air, and because she could have made new ones, but not with the stuff that they had on board. So they needed to stop, get more materials, and then Tiana could have kind of constructed more materials for it. But, by the time they got back, it was a problem. So it didn't really work out that way. But she sure did try. There's the attack by the Bone Dragon, which is I mean, pretty perfect for the Broken Wings art. So props to that, right? We've complained in the past about art and story coming together and having nothing to do with one another.
Right.
This was perfect. It was exactly as depicted on the card. It was really, really nice. Then Braids meets up with the crew by the gibbering thing that like Raph basically senses the magic from it,
Right.
and leads them over to it. And Braids comes out and is like, "I'm gonna need your help." And they're all like, but you're real weird and gross." And she's like, "Yep, still need your help though. And here, let me open the door for you." And opens the door for them, and they go through a realm of nightmares, which it felt very, I don't know. I guess that's my ultimate point at the end that I want to make, but I guess I can just make it now. Because, like I said, I'm with Amy. I don't have much to say about it. But these characters existed from Dominaria original, like, not original, but from the set Dominaria from 2018. And by these characters, I mean Shanna, Raph, Tiana, Arvad,
Right.
and Slimefoot, right? Obviously not Braids. That's from well before. But these other characters who are the crew of the Weatherlight are from Dominaria. It's no secret, if you've watched JaAR for a while, or if you go back and watch the Dominaria stories, that we did not love them.
Right.
We didn't. Now, to be completely fair to the author and the non-Nick Kelman members of the story team at the time, I don't need to be fair to Nick Kelman.
No, no one does.
No. But to be fair to all of those folks, it was like 12 stories, and the thing that we didn't like about it is that it faffed on for all but 2 of them, basically. Like, there were 2 where there was actually stuff happening.
And it was like the 2 last ones or something.
Well, it was like, I think it was the 3rd to last, and then we were like, thank God, it's ramping up. Then they took a week off to talk about Slimefoot, and then they, like, did the finale, and it was like, and maybe it was 2 at the end after that.
Like,
Yeah.
there's no way
No.
that they can cram all the loose ends being tied off into one story. And somehow they did, but, I'll let you guess how good that was.
Right. But again, it was otherwise 12 stories of nothing else. But, that's why I was saying, to be fair to them, there was, I guess, an attempt at, introducing these characters and character development and etc. It was very much like, the feeling was very much like, why should we care? None of this is good. So, is this similar to the War of the Spark novels? These aren't great to bad. Are they even really canon?
Right.
And they are, because that's how the stories were released at the time. We now see these characters coming back now, but those stories, in our opinion, were a bit of a flop. They literally had to bring someone in shortly after that to work on their continuity, because their continuity was so ass backwards that tons of people, even casual readers of the story, were like, that doesn't make sense with the story that you just had from Ixalan. It makes what's the timeline here? So, that was awkward and terrible. But now you've got these characters that exist. They've existed in cards. They have presumably been played as commanders of decks. There have to be people who like those old cards, right? That past Dominaria set was big on legends, and legends are pretty important for Commander. So for people who are playing these cards as their commanders, etc., these could be characters that people are excited to see back in the stories again. Who got character development in this story?
Braids.
Braids.
So, I mean, you're saying Braids is an old character. I didn't know that, because I didn't know the old characters necessarily.
Fair.
I don't know. All I can really say about this story is, with how freaking cool Braids' art was,
Yeah.
and the alt art. The alt art was incredible.
Yeah,
right?
I think we got 2 of each.
I was really excited for the possibility of getting a Braids story.
Sure.
And this was just meh.
And again, it was just meh in terms of learning about braids.
Right.
It was, again, it was entertaining,
Yeah.
but like I said, Shanna, kind of, like, her thing is like, I don't know if I'm worthy of the legacy that is being bestowed upon me
The legacy weapon.
not yet, in captaining the Weatherlight, right? So, I mean, first of all, that feels very tropey.
Yeah.
Of just like, I'm my mother's daughter, but can I live up to her majesty?
Right.
Not literally, but still, like, and it's like, I mean, you're your own person, do your own thing. But to be honest, like, Shanna was doing that throughout the whole story. Like, she was very sure of herself when she came across the nightmare that, like, to get through the gibbering wall. Like, she was very sure of herself there as well. Like, she lashed out at that one point, right? Where she was just, like, slashing at the nightmare version of her mother or Sisay or whatever. And, like, okay, sure, her mother, her ancestor. I might be wrong that it's her mother, but her ancestor in Sisay. And she's, like, slashing at her and kills her or destroys her, or whatever you want to say about a nightmare form. But she didn't, like, there wasn't that moment of, like, maybe I'm not good enough. Like, I didn't feel that. So it wasn't, like, a full hero's journey of, like, you know, rising action to the, like, doubt to coming back up and then, you know, like, and then closing out at the top. Maybe at the end she had that, where it was like, you know, it literally said it was a defeat, but it wasn't the end.
Yeah, but I think that kind of just felt more like a way for them to be like, there's more stories, we promise, keep reading.
But there's no, spoilers, next week's story is about Niambi. It has nothing to do with these people. Or the next story that we're going to do.
Either way.
The side story. And then the last main story is going to be about the sleeper agent and, you know, planeswalkers and stuff. So, like,
I feel like the fact that they cram these stories in such a small, like, period of time is because they're just begging for people to actually start reading the first one and finish reading the last one and everything in between. I think they're just, like, so trying to hold people's attention long enough to get them to read these stories. What they don't realize is that people will read them if they're actually good.
I guess it just frustrates me because Shanna is a mythic in this set. Tiana and Arvad and Slimefoot don't have their own cards in this set at all. Raph does. So of all the characters in this story, and Braids does. So of all the characters in this story, half of them...
There are a lot of characters in this story.
Well, I'm going to get to that too.
Okay.
Yes, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And I will. I'm going to get to that. For sure. But of the main characters in this story who have, like, dialogue, like, more than, like, 2 lines of dialogue, half of them don't have cards in the set. Now, in the past, we've said, oh, okay, that means in the next set in the block, they'll have cards. Well, the next set's the Brothers' War. That happened a long time ago. So, like, maybe Braids, but Braids already has a card. Like, Shanna and Raph and Tiana and Slimefoot and Arvad presumably weren't alive at that time. So, like, no. But this is the last story, unless something happens in the 5th side story or the 5th main story that I'm not privy to yet, because we will get there. But this is the last story with these characters in this set. They won't be in the next set. Maybe they'll be in the set after, whatever March of the Machines, they announced it already. You all know what it is. And if you don't, you're more than welcome to go look it up. I didn't memorize the release schedule yet, but we're going to be doing the Phyrexian stuff for a while. It's like March of the Machines and then whatever it is. So maybe we see them again because they're going to be trying to get the Weatherlight back because the whole thing is about the legacy weapon, right? Like last week we learned about, or last episode we learned about your boy, Squee, and Salvation, the Salvation Orb, or Sphere. which was part of the legacy weapon, and Karn's Silex that he's got. Like, all these things are part of the legacy weapon. Well, so's the Weatherlight, so that's gotta be important somewhere down the line. So I guess when the next set after Brothers War comes out, we're gonna hear more from these characters, but there was nothing. There was that one moment where Tiana's like, you know, I lost the Weatherlight, but, you know, and this and the big machine, the great machine, excuse me. What kind of an angel am I? And like, that was actually a cool moment.
I was like, whoa, that's a good question.
Too bad there were 15 words after that before the end of the story. Like, it's like, yes, yes, give me more, talk more about that,
something
please.
Interesting.
Nope.
And then, wah, wah.
So, for Raph, like, there was like a jokey moment between like Raph or among like Raph and then Shauna and Tiana, right? Like, they said like a funny line to him at one point, and that was it. That was the only time where they were like real. Like, you know, otherwise it was just like, Tiana's like, I'm worried about the Weatherlight. I'm worried about the Weatherlight. Did you know I'm worried about the Weatherlight? I have to go help the Weatherlight. That's my job. I need to go check on the Weatherlight. And it's like, yes, we get it. You don't understand your characters. Like, I don't really know what else I'm supposed to do for you, right? Like, give your characters character development.
But Joe, then they can't cram 15 characters into one story, and then 15 stories into 1 week.
So let me, it was 10 in 8 days. Let me read some names off for you, shall we? Because I wrote them down. Because at the time that I read them, I was like, oh, there's new Weatherlight crew. I should write their names down. Botono, Ulatin, Enixni, Velena, and Elmagron. You better remember all of those names. They're super important. Oh shit, they're all dead. All of them are dead. Every last one of them.
Yep.
And the only reason they existed was to die.
Yep.
Why even name them? What a waste of my time. What a waste of your time. And I don't mean you reading it, although that too. I mean the person who wrote it. Like, we need these characters to die so that you understand how terrible it is. No. All the characters who we know their names of, even though we couldn't give two shits about them in this story because they do nothing to be human. No pun intended for the angel and the vampire. But they do nothing to like humanize themselves or be real at all. So why would I give a shit if they died? Like, I would, because they're named characters, we've seen their cards, etc. But like, the super obvious plot armor of like, here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 new people that are Weatherlight crew members, and all of them by the end of the story are dead. In 3 paragraphs, all of them are dead at once. Why do I care? Slimefoot was in danger for 5 seconds.
Right.
And there was that moment of like, oh, damn, you better not. Of course they won't. He wasn't even in the story, or it wasn't even in the story. So, like, how could they have killed Slimefoot off? Slimefoot is a fan favorite character. I'm sure there would have been massive uproar if it was like, they walk in the room and Slimefoot's dead on the ground. It's like, what? Where did this come from? It didn't.
A fungal infection.
God damn it. It's just like, what was the purpose? So...
The purpose was they needed a story, they needed characters to be in that story, so they ham-fisted characters in, and they threw a story together.
It was just like, I genuinely want to know, right? Because as always, right, we can be as frustrated as possible here. If you liked this story, we want to know. Truly, right? Not to argue with you, not to tell you you're wrong, but to hear a different perspective. But...
We didn't dislike the story.
Sorry, you're right.
It was just...
Well, I'll rephrase. If Tiana, Arvad, Slimefoot, Raph, or Shauna are characters that speak to you in some way, that you enjoy in any way, and you enjoyed their presence in this story, aside from just, I know that person's name.
Right.
Let us know. Truly, because I want to know if I'm being unreasonable here. Because to me, it was like, again, we talked about this in the last Dominaria set, actually, that there were legends that were in the set that were named who show up in the story to have their name dropped, and then you never hear about them again. There was no character development for them whatsoever. There was barely a line of dialogue for them at all. They show up.
Simply a cameo.
They show up, they die, or they leave, or whatever. And it's just, it's similar to the 35 Planeswalkers, I'm slightly exaggerating, but the 35 Planeswalkers in the War of the Spark book, where whoever the narrator is focused on at that point, character-wise, what they're like, oh, there's that person over there. I think I heard them say that their name was Davriel or whatever. Like, obviously Davriel got chapters, but, you know, there's a Planeswalker over there. I heard somebody say his name is Karn. Is Karn consequential to the story? No. Like, I look over there and Karn's fighting something. Good job, Karn. Walks away. Like, there's no character development because they don't know these characters. And again, there was a lot of, like, opportunities for character development in Dominaria, but do they not want to reference back to those because they were bad and didn't work? I don't know. It's unclear. They kept the characters, they kept these individuals around, these legends. Although again, Tiana, Arvad, Slimefoot, not in card form this time around. Maybe in March of the Machines or whatever the hell it is. I don't know. But I genuinely want to know people's thoughts because it was like, here's all these new crew members whose names are damn nightmares, first of all. But they're all dead now.
Right.
Nightmares, I guess, no pun intended. But
Right.
they're all dead now. So, does it matter? No. I wrote them down because I wanted to be able to talk about it for this show, but otherwise it will be of no consequence, and it doesn't matter if you remember their names in a month because you heard about them for the first time in this story and for the last time in this story, and that is it. You will never hear about them ever again, and I would be shocked if we ever see a card in Magic the Gathering with any of those names on it for these people, right? If they, for some reason, like, are like, oh, I forgot that we named someone Elmagron already. Let's name someone Elmagron. Like, okay, I guess. So, I don't know, man.
But yeah, I mean, to your point, I think they don't want to reference old stories at all for character development. I think that's clear. Maybe that's a controversial thing for me to say.
Well, I mean,
because maybe it's a bit of a generalization, right? But I feel like we have enough proof at this point for me to make that as a statement instead of just a theory.
Well, I mean, because, again, the first episode of Dominaria United story, main story, we talked about the fact that we needed to look up so much stuff to make sure that we understood as much as possible. That is arguably referencing past stories.
Yeah.
So, like, that aspect, sure. But I just, for this one, it's like none of these characters did much. What did they do to grow or change from the beginning of the story to the end? Yes, Shauna and Tiana lost the Weatherlight, and that upset them. And we heard that. But, you know, the line of like, this is a defeat, but it's not the end. It's the end for like over 6 months.
Right.
So it's not even like, oh my god, I can't wait to see what happens next. It's like, holy shit, how long do we have to wait until we see what happens next? Because we're reviewing this late.
Yeah.
This story came out a few weeks ago, right? So if the story came out a few weeks ago, and now we have to wait for the release of March of the Machine, or not March of the Machines, Brothers War,
Right.
and all the stories, if they're doing it in the same dumbass way of releasing all of their stories in like with it less than 2 weeks for 10 stories, then that's how long we're going to wait, right? All those stories are going to be released. Presumably nothing about this stuff. Then we have to wait more time, another large gap between the Brothers War story and the whatever March of the Machines. Again, if I'm wrong on that, you're welcome to tell me in the comments what the next set is. I can look it up immediately after this, but whatever you choose to do, I'm not gonna be like, how dare you correct me? I want corrections, please, all the time if I'm wrong. But whatever that next set is, right? That story might have this. Now, this was the 4th of 5 side stories. Does that mean this is going to be the first main story or the first side story of the next one? We have no way of knowing. So we just have to wait now. And it's truly not, oh my God, what a sick cliffhanger.
Yeah.
I'm curious how they are going to handle the Weatherlight being a sentient Phyrexian ship now. Do the Phyrexians
hot
get
dog gravy bowl?
do the Phyrexians get a full legacy weapon?
Huh?
And try to use it against the heroes? And is that what we have to deal with? Maybe. Their own version of it, I guess.
And then Salvation fixes everything. I'm waiting for it.
That'd be nice. So, hey, guess what? That's the end of this particular review. I don't know. How the hell do I end this one? Like I said, I genuinely want to know other people's thoughts. Like, are we too gloom and doom? Or...
Always. That's why we don't get enough views on these shows.
Hey, people liked the Squee one.
Yeah.
People liked the Squee one.
Good.
So if you're here from that one...
That was an awesome story.
Yeah.
So I hope they did.
Yeah. So if you're here from that one, thanks for sticking with us. And if you're not here from that one, thanks for sticking with us. Because we appreciate it nonetheless. But yeah, truly, keep the conversation going in the comments down below. We want to know your thoughts. We want to hear from you. That's the whole point. So...
Everything you have to say.
Agreed.
Because
yes.
Especially if we miss stuff. Like, maybe you read this and you were like, hey, wait a minute. Why is this how you feel about this? I don't get it. I read this story and I thought it was incredible. And here are the aspects about it that were incredible. And you didn't even talk about them. Please write that in the comments. Maybe we missed something. Let us know.
Yeah.
We want to know. Because we want the story to be good.
True.
We do.
True. Well, otherwise, we're, again, as Amy said, right, we're not doing this for the fame or the glory or whatever.
No, we're doing it for the Vorthos pride, baby.
Damn it. I was just going to get there. No, it's fine. That's perfect.
Well, I didn't say hashtag.
It's fine. We can do it now. So, yes, to read a story, by the way, for the love of it, even if you're not enjoying it, in the hopes that it gets better, in talking about it in the hopes that people listen and understand where we're coming from and what we think. And you joining us in that and letting other people know, right? We always say likes and shares go a very long way. One, because it helps us to grow, sure. But two, because it can help to spread the discussion. Make it bigger, larger, whatever. Like, we appreciate that greatly so that we can get this to more eyes and more voices.
Right.
That's super important to us.
Yeah, because the more that other people put into it, the more it takes on a life of its own. And it can do the story that much more justice than just two random people talking about a story, right?
Yeah.
Because that only does a story so much justice when two people are talking about a story.
Mm-hmm.
But when it's a whole community talking about a story, giving it all these facets and all this analysis and all of this perspectives, right? That helps do the story justice. Or if it's a short and or not as good story, it helps elevate the story.
Yeah.
And make it meatier and make it more meaningful.
Right. And hell, if it's a good story that not a lot of people are talking about, like the Squee one,
yeah,
it can help to elevate it a little bit more as well, hopefully.
And clue people into the fact that they should listen.
Hopefully.
Like they should be like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll read this story and I'll watch this video on it and I'll say something about it because those people did it too.
Mm-hmm.
And so, maybe it's worth that. Yeah. And if it is worth that, we want to help people know that it's worth that.
Sure. And so, obviously then, if you didn't get where we were originally going with that, doing all of that is a great way for all of you as a community to join us as we show off our...
Hashtag Vorthos Pride.
That's right. It's super important. Thank you so much for being here with us for these reviews, leaving your opinions in the comments down below. We really want to hear from you. We already said, subscribe, ring the bell, likes, shares. Thank you so much for any and all support that you're willing to give. We would love to see you on a stream Mondays, Fridays, 8 p.m. Eastern, right here on this channel. Check out Video Games for All, Gluten Free for All, links down in the description box below. But for now, from us here at the Geek for All family of channels, I've been Joe.
And I'm Mimi.
And as we always say, in whichever video of ours you watch next, we will see you all next time. Thanks, everybody.